Good morning. It's good to be with you today. Here we are in the middle of a week, and a week where I've been talking about the kingdom of God. Today, I have a passage that describes the kingdom of God and life within the kingdom of God. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that this passage has another name. It's called the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 3, going through actually verse 12, but I'm not going to read that far. It says a whole bunch of things. But what I want to do quickly is look at the first verse and then make a couple comments here. Matthew 5:3 says, God blesses those who are poor and realizes their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Now, I want to look at that phrase, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. If you go to the last one in this list, verse 10, it says, God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven are two words that are used interchangeably in the New Testament. There are some technical theological differences, but for our purposes, that don't really matter. What this passage tells us, and this is Jesus' first sermon, first talk to a large group of people. And I'm sure you've looked at it or heard of it, and it goes on beyond these verses all the way through chapters 6 and 7 of Matthew. But right here it says, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Well, who is the there? So let's look. Verse 4. Those who are poor and realize their need for him. It doesn't mean physically or fiscally poor. It means those who are poor and know that they're not in charge. Who else is included? Verse 4, those who mourn. Verse 5, those who are humble. Verse 6, those who hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness. Verse 7, for those who are merciful. Verse 8, for those whose hearts are pure. Verse 9, those who work for peace. And then finally, as I read before, verse 10, those who are persecuted for doing right. Every one of these descriptions of who inherits the kingdom of God, every one of these descriptions are others oriented or oriented towards finding God. Every one of them. You take a look at them sometime. Read it. Matthew chapter 5, 3 through 10. Every one of them is about people who think of others first. We got a lot in our world who don't do that. You probably know a whole bunch. I don't have to think very hard to find some, even in my own family. It's something unworldly to think of other people first. We live in a me world. It's all about me. I deserve this. I have the right for this. I should have this. It's not fair because I don't get this. And all those kinds of things that seep down into our soul and try to make us into something that God doesn't want us to be. See, the kingdom of God, which I've already shared, is here and still fully yet to come. The kingdom of God is composed of those people who have a heart that searches for God, calls it pure in spirit. Pure in spirit. those who recognize I can do a lot of things, but the things I can do are gifts from God. And that's it. If we could live our life based on these descriptions, realizing our need for Him, mourning, comforting those, being humble, being hungry and thirsty for justice and righteousness, being merciful, have hearts that are pure, working for peace. If we could live a life that way, we would be able to see the presence of God in ways we've never dreamed of before. We would be able to find God in the midst of any struggle. We would be able to be like Jesus. And I just want to suggest this rather simple thought. Isn't that what walking with God is supposed to be about? I know our culture rewards the fancy and the big and the rich and the ones who make the most noise. But those aren't the ones that God looks at with favor. He looks at those who Matthew 5 is talking about. He gives us the guidelines for success, not necessarily that this world will embrace, but that God will embrace. You know, I understand many people aren't all that interested about the world after this one. After all, this is the only world they know. It's the only one I know. Only one I've ever experienced. But yet, the one that is yet to come is so much better than this one. I don't know where you are in your walk with the Lord or your walk in life. I know some of you who have indicated to me that you listen are really struggling with any sense of meaning or any sense of happiness or any sense of joy. And I know some of you who have listened that have experienced times when joy was really hard to find in your life. And I just want to say that God knows that. But He still reaches out and welcomes and invites you and me to come into His presence. Remember here it says, those who are pure in heart and who seek Him. If you want to see the kingdom of God, quit looking with your physical eyes. Look with your heart and find Him. Well, thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow with some more thoughts. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.